we think if we, like, our innocence is finally going to vindicate us, right? We just have to trust the system. But when you're being targeted in this corrupt way, they have to realize that it's because they're innocent or because they're virtuous that they're being targeted in the first place.
Hi, Daily Citizen readers. This is Emily Washburn, and we're here at SoCon with Dr. Eithan Haim, one of the Texas children's whistleblowers who helped expose their secret transgender medical program. Last time we talked to you, Dr. Haim, you were just a couple months out from going public with your allegations. Can you give us an update on everything that's happened since then?
Yeah, so everything was kind of still in that state of legal purgatory, last time we spoke. And the last, when things really changed, it was early June, and my wife and I woke up because we had this, someone was aggressively ringing our doorbell. And, I wake up and I made this joke that, looking back on was not that funny, but I wake up and I'm like, oh, it's probably the feds. And my wife's like, oh, just go answer the door.
Yeah.
And I open it and standing outside, there were 3 heavily armed U.S. Marshals. 7 a.m. and they came to my home like I was some type of drug kingpin or criminal mastermind. And of course it's like that's their intentions were clear, right? They were sending a message. But they hand me this indictment, and it informs me that I'm being charged with 4 federal felonies, face up to 10 years in prison. And we get on the phone with our attorneys, go through it, and this is what they said they were going to do. This is what they told us. So when people tell us these things, we should just believe them. So, I went to a pretrial hearing 2 weeks later, stood in front of the judge, pleaded not guilty while they read the possible consequences of it. Now that we have the idea of what they're charging, what their indictment is, it makes it even more important that we have to fight against it, because this is truly so corrupt. It's unimaginable. So.
Yeah, and we talked last time about the novelty of the case, bringing felony charges with HIPAA, and you got the impression that they were very determined to bring the case against you, even though there isn't a lot of legal precedent for it. Are you still getting that impression that they're going to follow it all the way through?
I think so.
Okay.
Because they have no other option. And especially with cases like this, it exists outside the scope of what we typically consider law. Right? We have to start looking at this as it really is. This is the weaponization of the justice system. So it's not that the justice system is meant to protect the innocent from criminals, but criminals from the innocent. Right? You have people who are in the justice system who are abusing it to go after people who do the right thing. And when people like me find ourselves in this situation, right? It's we think if we, our innocence is finally going to vindicate us, right? We just have to trust the system. But when you're being targeted in this corrupt way, they have to realize that it's because they're innocent or because they're virtuous that they're being targeted in the first place. So the only thing to do is to not comply with something that is fundamentally legitimate, right? You can't give them something which they have not earned, because this case is something that's completely corrupt, right? It's not the trying to determine truth, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to destroy it. So we just have to recognize that this is something completely different.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. And you were up at the panel today with Vanessa Sivage, who initially came out to back up your claims, and then she recently came out with allegations of Medicaid fraud. What was your reaction to that new facet of the case?
So, I thought my story was crazy, but that one, it was took it to a whole different level, because so it was the next day after this pretrial hearing. So I was going to drop off my passport at the federal courthouse, right? Because in this situation, you have to give your passport. And I leave, and then I get in my car, and then I read this story. And I remember just sitting in my car and thinking, this is the craziest thing ever. So not only were they lying about this program, but if these allegations are true, they're coming after me in order to cover up this very severe thing that had been happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing is using the fact of a child's health as evidence of their disease, and they were using that in order to defraud insurance companies. So it's like you have a perfectly healthy child who's a boy, but they're saying he's estrogen deficient, and they're using that information to get paid. So what can be more evil than that? And they're going after the people who are trying to expose it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's this is the thing. It's a very, very big deal if true, and I think there's a good chance it is, because these organizations are teaching doctors how to code in this way.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly you've experienced the kind of pressure and the kind of lengths that you're willing to go to, and I think they're willing to go to prosecute you. I think everyone in the panel seemed very moved to me by your story, especially as focused on the family. It was moving to hear you talk about your wife and the legacy that you hope to leave for your daughter. Can you expand on that a little bit for our readers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have to recognize, like, whenever I'm working and I have a patient who comes in and they're really sick, like their heart rate's high, their blood pressure's low, you press on their belly and they just jump off the bed, and you're thinking to yourself, like, there's a really bad situation going on here. You have to act, you have to do something about it, because you recognize that this person's very sick. So you require immediate, significant action in order to save that person's life. So we have to recognize the country we're living in. Like, things are really bad right now. They're going after innocent people, they're trying to destroy them. The things that we had always taken for granted are things that we can't necessarily, be reassured that we're going to pass on to our children. So it's always been that previous generations of parents have been willing to sacrifice for their children, which means they have to leave their home if they need to, sometimes for a long time, and sometimes they know they may not ever come back. So that's just what we have to do, because things are so bad now, right? Things are really bad. And if they don't change, just imagine what it's going to be like for our children. And if we don't make that sacrifice, like, can we really say we love our children? Because if we don't, then we're really just saying we love ourselves more than that.
Yeah.
So I think the answer is obvious. I mean, things are really bad. Like, it's a critical condition, as we say in medicine.
Yeah.
You have to do something.
Yeah, it's crazy, but as you mentioned, or I think as Vanessa mentioned, courage is contagious, and I think you could feel it in that room. So maybe we can spread a little courage to our readers. These are taxpayers who don't want to be paying for your prosecution or Medicaid fraud.
Yeah, and think about it. It's like, so people pay their taxes to pay for the government, like the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice then uses those tax dollars to go after innocent people who do the right thing, right, and ignore criminals. And then those same people donate to my, legal fund. So it's like, well, they're using the money they pay in taxes to go after innocent people, and then because of the virtues of the people, they're willing to sacrifice to help someone like me, which is something I'm eternally grateful for.
Sure.
But it's something that they shouldn't even have to donate to, right? And we have to recognize that, like, we're paying for our own prosecution, right? We're paying for our own persecution. At some point, a lot of people are going to ask, like, why are we paying?
Why? Yeah, absolutely. So, we have everyday people and Christians that read our piece. What can they do to help you in your cause?
Well, of course, the biggest thing now for us is we have to fight this trial. We've spent everything we've ever had, everything we've saved, over $200,000, but we have a Give, Send, Go that people can donate to. It's givesendgo.com/Texas_whistleblower. And everything goes to a legal fight. And we realized how important it is, because even though we have the truth on our side, and this investigation is an indictment is completely insane, once you get into the federal courtroom, it's totally different, because it all depends on what you can get in the court, what arguments you can make, and that's what distinguishes the people who win and then the people who lose. So we have an amazing team, and everything that people donate goes right into that. And everyone who has donated, we're eternally grateful for it.